INSiiGHTS Sports Talk.
1, 2, talk and talk.
INSiiGHTS Sports Talk. Traveling the country for the biggest stories in collegiate sports. Bringing you the news that will impact every college athlete in America. From the Ivy League to the SWAC, Big Sky to the Big Ten, Notre Dame to Grambling U, Miami or Maine. No university is too big, no college too small. We tell it all. INSiiGHTS Sports Talk with your hosts, the coach, Mickey Clayton and Clayton Smith. They're bringing you insight on all the latest stories from all the biggest names in collegiate sports. Join us for the next 60 minutes for INSiiGHTS Sports Talk. The sports talk show, of a different kind.
Welcome. I'm your host, Mickey Clayton, the coach. And INSiiGHTS is your show. We look to give you something new every time you listen to us. Today, we're going to have an exclusive INSiiGHTS interview with Duer Sharp, the personable and articulate commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. He is going to allow us insights into the SWAC, including possible conference expansion. Can anyone say Big Blue? South Carolina head football coach Steve Spurrier has sounded a warning salvo pow to everyone about why the football powerhouses want to make their own music and dance to their own song. Those powerhouse conferences believe they make the money, so they should make the rules. As a commissioner of an FCS league, Duer Sharp also blows the trumpet for the conferences that aren't living in the exclusive high-rent skyrise apartments of the powerhouse Big Five conferences. You do want to stay through the whole show because you're going to be summoned to the coach's office in the 8th inning. And don't leave before the 9th inning because Warren Sapp, a man's man for sure. Woo, that's my guy. Anyone loving that barbecue like he does? Anywhere he tells me is good barbecue ribs, I'm going to get me a bone or two. I got to go there, I'm just telling you. But wait till it's all over because Warren Sapp will throw that final pitch in today's show. The first inning of every show is going to deal with cleaning up comments and questions from you, the listeners. Then a quick pitch out on what's going on right now. If you have a comment or observation, hit us on Twitter or Facebook. 2 eyes in the middle, INSiiGHTS, INSiiGHTS. Today's show is hashtag David and Goliath. Well, here comes the first pitch. With me is my co-host Clayton Smith, and we're going to respond to a few questions from our listeners from last week's show, which was PEDs, good or bad. We had a listener who had a concern about creatine usage and if it's something that really helps, and if we could find out something about it for him. Well, we did. We went to Dr. Garrison Rowe from the Tallahassee Orthopedic Clinic in Tallahassee, Florida, and that's a little redundant because you wouldn't expect the Tallahassee Orthopedic Clinic to be located in Miami. Well, anyway, we talked to Dr. Rowe. We asked him about creatine. We asked him if it actually works. And then we asked him again if his son or child, who are athletes, was using creatine, what would his thought be about that?
Hey, Mickey, it's Dr. Rowe. So you had some questions about basically creatine. Question number one was, does it have an advantage to athletes? And the answer is yes, a lot of times it does. Creatine is a naturally occurring substance. And basically the advantage for athletes to take this substance is if they are in any way lacking of it, it is an extra supply that can be stored in the muscle and it can be used to regenerate energy during athletic competition or event and training. Such that if you have an athlete that's trying to do multiple repetitions of, say, a sprint or lifting a weight, if that muscle normally tires out and that muscle uses ATP molecules for its energy, then the P, which is basically a phosphate unit, is needed to re-energize that ATP muscle. Creatine is actually creatine phosphate, and it's adjusted form, and thus you get an extra phosphate unit that can be used to re-energize the muscle. So you can train longer, you can run longer, you can do things in an athletic arena that give you a sort of advantage. Now, there are about, I don't know, anywhere from, you look at the studies, 60 to 70% of the athletes that could benefit from that. That means about 30 to 40% are fully maximized or don't respond to the exogenous creatine. The second question is, does it lead to more injuries? And the answer is we really don't know. There's a stress strain curve that determines when a muscle tendon unit will fail or when it will exert so much stress that a ligament will fail. And that's really hard to measure. There's been no studies that have shown that there's increased injuries in athletes that use creatine. Probably the biggest risk is occasionally you can have people that ingest too much. It's excreted in the kidneys, and so you can overtax a kidney that is maybe not normal or working on the fine line between normal and abnormal. But it's pretty safe. It's not like steroids where you have this increased muscle mass and power that can overload muscle tendon units or ligaments and cause injury, and it doesn't usually have a problem in terms of being metabolized in the liver and actually causing liver damage long term. And I think the final question was, would I let my son or daughter use creatine if it was their choice to try to gain a athletic advantage? And the answer would be, it depends on their age, and it depends on whether or not I felt like they were in such stiff competition that that little bit of advantage would be worth taking a supplement. It's a fairly safe supplement. It's like, your teenage son trying to take extra protein to build a little muscle while he works out in the weight room. And so it's not that risky. It's not the ones you hear about with kids having cardiac arrest. There has been some report of muscle cramps, but with good hydration, that seems to not be a problem. And hydration is always the key issue most times in whether an athlete cramps or not. Couple that with electrolyte balance, and you can probably put the increased cramping due to creatine probably to rest. Some of this stuff is still being researched and worked out, but in any event, I think it's relatively safe. I probably would not let my kids just knee-jerk use it because it's the vogue in thing to do. But it's not as bad as if they came home and said they wanted to use a injectable or ingestible steroid, for sure.
There it is, straight from Dr. Rowe. Dr. Rowe really knows his stuff. He added a little personal touch to it, giving some insight on how he would handle it with his child. Dr. Rowe, thanks so much for giving us insight into creatine. PEDs continues to be hot. On last week's show, we talked about upcoming news on PEDs, and we weren't wrong. It's been blistering across the news media about PEDs. And we have some more information because so much is going on, suspensions, discussions. Clayton, do you want to elaborate about what's going on to our listeners?
Well, the stuff really hit the fan this week. Major League Baseball did suspend 13 guys. The most famous, of course, is Alex Rodriguez, who's with the Yankees. He's suspended for the rest of this season, which is about 52 games, I believe that's correct, and also the next season. However, he is appealing his suspension, so he will be able to play until this has been decided. So there's an outside...
I thought it was already decided.
No, it's already been decided, but if he appeals, if a player appeals, then they can play until the appeal is heard.
About how long does the appeal process last?
The appeal could end this week, or it could start in the winter. So we don't know.
Okay.
We don't, as of right now, as of this airing date, we don't know. But he played last night. He'll play today. And
where did they play last night?
They played in Chicago last night.
What was the fan reaction to him? I can imagine, but what was the fan reaction to him?
Well, he went 1 for 4. They were in Chicago, so he wasn't playing a home game.
Okay.
But there were a lot of boos coming out of the stands. But his teammates did show a lot of support for him.
Well, most of these people that have been suspended, most of these baseball players, Clayton, they're all connected with the Biogenesis Center?
That's correct. They're all connected with Biogenesis drug case. They have all been listed on they found on a manifest that was connected with that particular center, and that's why they have been suspended.
Okay, are these all like I think I only heard a couple of them I knew. I know Johnny Peralta because he was with the Indians one time, and we had a guy who's like leading the league in stolen bases. And so are any of these named players?
Well, in all honesty, only 4 of them are really named players. The guy you mentioned, Cabrera, who's leading the league in stolen bases with the Padres. You got Nelson Cruz with the Rangers. Peralta, who you mentioned also, who's now with the Tigers. And, of course, A-Rod. A few of the other guys, they're in the minor leagues now. A couple of them have played a little bit, played sparingly. But those are the 4 top names out of the 13 that have been suspended, not including Braun.
Okay, but then we suspended one guy, but Major League Baseball suspends a guy, and if the team gets in the playoff, he can play. I'm not understanding how you get suspended, and then if your team does well and gets into the playoff, my bad, you can come back and finish up the season. That just seems like a little injustice to me.
Players Association. That's something they negotiated. That's something they're able to do.
Wow. Explain that a little bit more. Now, what do you mean?
Well, these guys have been suspended 50 games. So if they have 53 games left in the season, they start their suspension immediately. Then there's 3 games left in the regular season, whatever postseason is left, they're allowed to play.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to take a timeout, and we're going to come back and hear the interview from Duer Sharp. Follow us on INSiiGHTS, INSiiGHTS on Twitter. And you can hit me on Twitter, Mickey Clayton FL on Twitter. Follow INSiiGHTS. We'll be right back.
1, 2, talk and talk.
I'm waking up to action dust. I wipe my brow and I sweat my rust. I'm breathing in the chemicals. I'm waking up.
Hello? What up, Dre? Hold up, I gotta finish something. Talk to me.
This is Mickey Clayton, and we're back on INSiiGHTS, and we're going to keep the pressure on. And right now, we're going to have an exclusive interview that we have with Duer Sharp, the personable commissioner from the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And we're going to share that with you right now.
Tell me a little bit about the strengths of the SWAC, the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Tell me what you perceive as the strengths of your conference.
Well, I would have to say the strength really lies with the 10-member institutions and those student athletes and those coaches and administrators and the presidents and chancellors, but definitely with our fans. I mean, we probably have, I wouldn't say probably, we definitely have the most passionate fans in the country in the SWAC. So it's always good, man, when you go and you hear that you can see it, you can feel it, and the pageantry and the pride that they take in their institutions. Some people didn't even go to the school, but they just love the school so much because they grew up with it. It's kind of ingrained in them. So it's always, it's always a good time to go out and talk with folks who have that historical background of the institution and what it was like back when, Walter Payton played and what it was like when Jerry Rice played and Shaq Harris and Doug Williams. So I really enjoy having those conversations as I get out in SWAC country.
Okay. You mentioned something in the first part of that response. You said something about the students and academically. Tell us some of the advantages or disadvantages you may have with some of your student athletes at at the SWAC school. Tell us a little bit about that, about the academic challenges and the academic successes that you have with the kids who graduate from your institutions.
Well, I think really we struggle with the APR because it's a lot of it has to do with resources, not just financial resources, but faculty. We're going to have to do a better job of providing our student athletes with more folks who are employed at the university to assist them with making the right choices when it comes to, advising them on what classes to take and things of that nature and how close you are to graduating and here's how many degree credits you need and things of that nature. So I think the one good thing definitely is the individual attention that you get at a SWAC institution. It's not, I went to the University of Wisconsin. You walk into a lecture hall, it's one professor for 500 people.
Right.
Where you go to an HBCU, it's not going to be that. You're going to get that one-to-one attention that a lot of students and student athletes need. So I definitely think that is a positive. So on the negative side, we just got to do a better job of providing the NCAA with the correct data when they start, reviewing how many people have graduated and where we are along the lines of graduating our current student athletes. And so we're educating ourselves. The SWAC, we're going to go out and hire a consultant to help our schools to provide the NCAA with the correct data and take advantage of the different waivers and policies that they have regarding APR. And I think moving further down the line, I feel pretty good that we'll be okay when it comes to APR and the postseason ban, because that's really what's hurting us right now.
Wow, you just said something, about having the correct data to be able to report that back to the NCAA, and you made a reference that the conference is going to do some things to help the member institutions along that line. Tell us a little bit more about that. That's really good.
Well, I think when you look at it, and we were finding a lot of teams were being put on postseason ban and then coming back after going, hey, some of our information is not correct. They would go back, correct that information, go through the waiver process, and then have that waiver approved. So what we're saying is, hey, let's familiarize ourselves with the policies. What is countable? What is in a cohort? Who in that cohort has graduated, who has not graduated. And when you're able to do that, you're able to provide them with the correct information. And you won't even be put on postseason ban and have to go through the appeals process or the waiver process. So what we want to do is go out and hire a consultant who can go to the institution and go, hey, give me all your information. Give me your person who is in charge of compiling it and providing it to the NCAA. I'm going to sit down with them, and we're going to go over all this information to make sure that it's up to date, to make sure that it's correct, and then we'll provide it to the NCAA. So that's what we want to do. And definitely, again, the information that you provide is half the battle.
It sure is. It really is. Now, a proposal along that line, would that be a proposal that you'd make to your president's council and talk to them about? I'm sure that they were excited about the prospects of doing that. How is your relationship, or how involved are they in terms of making decisions for the SWAC and their member institutions?
Well, my presidents are very involved because I can't do anything without talking to them. So I can't, without the president's approval, I'm not allowed just to run around and enter SWAC into agreements or anything like that. Everything has to be approved by the Council of Presidents. I think my council chair, John Rutley, President John Rutley at Texas Southern University, I keep him informed. As all of them I do, I provide them all with a monthly executive summary of the things that we're working on here. So SWAC, Council of Presidents and Chancellors are very informed as to what's going on here in the conference office.
Wow. Okay. Well, tell me, the changing gears just a little bit, with all the talk about changing conferences, what needs to be done to allow the SWAC to remain a viable and strong entity for the institutions and the student athletes it represents?
I think for us, we just got to continue to get better. I mean, we've come a long way. We got a long way to go, but SWAC has made tremendous strides over the 9 years I've been here as assistant commissioner, associate commissioner, and now as the commissioner for the last 5 years. I think that the schools and the ADs and SWAs have done a very good job of kind of, walking along with us. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint, so we just got to continue to get better. when we play those teams and those contests outside of our conference, we've got to start to win some of those and let people know. I think we were right there, and I say this to everybody. 2 years ago, Mississippi Valley had Western Kentucky on the ropes in Dayton, and we hadn't won an NCAA basketball game in 18 years. And then we wound up winning when I want to say UAPB beat Winthrop for the first time. That was the first game we won in 18 years in the men's basketball tournament. We lost the following year with Alabama State to I want to say University of Texas San Antonio. If Valley wins that game, that's 2 games in 3 years after we hadn't won in 18 years. So, and then just go out and watch the way that Southern played, Gonzaga. You know we're right there. I mean, we can compete with anybody. We just have to do it when the lights are on and when we're in these foreign gyms and on these foreign fields and we're playing against folks. We just got to give them the best that the SWAC can give them. But I think right now, as long as we continue to improve and then that non-conference record continues to improve, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, Southern had them on the ropes right there.
Yeah, they were right there. That's a jump shot away. You're right there. But I got to give credit. I mean, Gonzaga just hit some huge shots. They hit huge shots, and that's what you do. You know what I mean? But I think my phone was going crazy the whole game because people just could not believe that, Southern was going to stick with them. But I knew it. I mean, you watched them play all year. You knew they were a good basketball team, So that was a great, for us, that's a momentum builder for the SWAC. So we've got to take that, and we've got to build momentum on that. So I think our men's basketball, our women's basketball, our football, all of our sports, man, they do a great job. So as long as we continue on the path that we're on, I think the SWAC will be fine.
Well, tell me this. When the Big Five conferences are talking about leaving the NCAA and possibly starting their own division and starting their own league away from the NCAA and doing a Division IV, wanting to control their own destiny because they feel like the smaller schools seem to vote out measures that they would like to implement. What is your thought on that? And then tell me where that puts the SWAG and some of the other conferences of that size. What's your thought on that, Commissioner Sharp?
Well, I think that one, we're all part of the same association, whether it's Big Ten and Pac-12 and SWAC and MEAC, and we're all a part of the same association, so we're allowed to vote in the best interest of our member institutions, and I'm quite sure that Jim Delaney and Mike Slive and Larry Scott and those other Big Five commissioners feel the same way. I think for us, we just have to stay strong as a FCS member. And at the end of the day, I know President Emmert and his staff at the NCAA will work with those Big Five conferences, to make sure everybody's happy. But this is just not, if you don't get your own way, you just can't go, hey, we're going to go do our own thing.
Right.
I just don't agree with that. I think, to be a part of an association means you're a part of the association, which means sometimes you're going to have to do what's in the best interest of everybody, not just yourself.
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, I think that's what the SWAC is going to do. We're a member of the FCS. We don't participate in the playoff. But, again, that's something we'll look at with our council of presidents and our chancellors and go, hey, is it time for SWAC to get back in the playoff? Or do you – right now I think they're comfortable with the football championship game, and I'm comfortable with that. So, for me, I think, the Big Five conferences, they have to sit down with President Emmert and do what's best for the entire body, not just what's best for your conference. Now, that's hard to say because I know those guys, they have their presidents that they work for just like I do. But at the same time, you are a part of the association, so you need to do what's in the best interest of the association.
Duer Sharp said if you're going to be a part of the team, then be a part of the team. You be a team player. We're going to take a break right now and come back and do the second part of this interview.
1, 2, talk that talk.
Julio, I need to ask you a question. What is it, compadre? Did your mama get that hoodie at Kmart? Yeah, dog. Well, your mama must have cavities, because that hoodie is sweet.
Oh, yeah? Well, your mama's like a tasty cheese plate, because she served up a bunch of cheddar on them Kmart jeans.
Oh! Well, your mama's got so much game that she couldn't even store it on that tablet.
Oh!
Come on!
Your mom's so fashion forward, the future call, they want those hot tops back.
Oh! Well, your mama's so fiscally responsible, she got all that on free layaway.
Shop Your Way members get free layaway at Kmart. New school year starts here.
Duer Sharp, the commissioner of the SWAC, has been allowing us insight into his conference. We are back with the second part of his enlightening interview.
Conferences your size of the SWAC, what is their biggest challenge with all of this going on? And I understand and appreciate the fact that you're saying, when you're part of an association, we have to do what's best for the all. That as Clint Eastwood used to say, that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Right, exactly. I just think, people like SWAC, MEAC, OVC, Sunbelt, Southland, we all just have to make sure we're on the same page and that we're getting the information. We have a meeting, the FCS conferences. We have a meeting in Atlanta in a couple of days, and we're going to go over and kind of talk about what's going on. The Big Ten passed a rule where they won't play any more FCS teams in football. Now the SEC, their non-conference basketball schedules have to be okayed by the conference office because of RPI and them playing schools with low RPI. And so now we've got to, they're starting to take actions to better themselves to get more teams in the basketball tournament, and the Big Ten is taking action to get more teams a possible shot to get in this playoff. I think that we need to, kind of take a look at where we are, conferences our size, and go, okay, now what's best for us? How do we protect ourselves when you have a school that may be on an SEC basketball schedule, and then they get a call from Commissioner Slive going, hey, you're going to have to take Alabama A&M or one of those SWAC schools. You're going to have to tell them you can't play them. And for us, that's a direct hit on revenue. Mm-hmm. So we've got to look and see what's best for us. And for every action, there's a positive reaction, but you want to make sure that everybody's informed and everybody's on the same page. So what we want to do is get to Atlanta, get all the information, and then we'll sit down with the other FCS conferences and see what's the best move for all of us. Well, just a couple more questions, and I really do appreciate the time that you've given me and to be able to enlighten our listeners on some things that they may have questions about. No problem. There is a question that comes up from time to time about taking some of the institutions, some of the strong HBCUs, and perhaps joining and creating a super conference and taking the best from the SWAC and the MEAC. And, people just talk, but would that be something that would be, or let me put it this way, would it be, as conferences are realigning, have some of your institutions been approached about joining other conferences, and have the SWAC thought about adding other schools to the SWAC? Of course, we've thought about expansion. We're in debate right now with Tennessee State trying to get them to join the SWAC. It's been some time, so after I get finished with my meeting in Atlanta, my next, point of destination is going to be to Nashville to sit down with Teresa Phillips there and say, hey, God, where are you all at in regards to joining the SWAC? So right now we've got a lot of positive things going on, but at the same time, you want to be selective. You want to make sure that, hey, is this a good fit for us? And when the presidents and chancellors and ADs and SWA sat down, we identified Tennessee State as an institution that would definitely bring, positive aspects to the SWAC, not only from an athletic standpoint, but from an academic standpoint also. So you're also looking at that, and you're also looking at distance, far as do they fit your geographic footprint? What is the increase in travel if they're allowed in the league? I think if you look at that now, I saw an article the other day where West Virginia was saying, man, it's going to cost us a lot of money now that we're in the Big 12. So how do we do all that and make sure that we're able to be financially successful. So we want to do the same thing. You just don't want to sit there and throw darts and go, hey, man, that's a great team. You have to take everything into account. So, that's what we'll do. We'll sit down and take everything into account and see who's good for us. But you definitely would like to expand. And then I had heard a lot about forming a super conference, and my concern with that is what happens to those schools that get left out? What happens to those schools who are not a part of that super conference? Do they go away? And I think that's the great thing about being a part of a conference where, you're supposed to protect your sister school. You're not really supposed to leave them and go, hey, we've got this great offer to join this super conference of HBCU schools. At that point, do you still think that sister school is going to play you for that rivalry game every year? Probably not, because you left them. Instead of saying, hey, we're in this together, we're going to take care of each other, you said, hey, we're going to take the money. And I think if you look at that, perfect example is, when Texas and them not playing A&M anymore. Texas and Texas A&M won't play each other because they took the money. And Texas felt, said, hey, we're not going to play you anymore since you want to go join the SEC. We're here where we belong in our conference. So I think, again, we just have to look at it, and I'm quite sure there'll still be talk of a super conference. But at this time, for us, I think we're committed to staying in. All of our schools are committed to being in the SWAC. And until I hear otherwise, that's how I'm going to work.
Wow. Duer, I have to comment. This is, and I know our listeners are going to be enlightened by what you shared so candidly with them, and your thinking and your ideology has been consistent, even when you reference the super conference on the question I asked you, and making sure that you're protective of your sister schools. And one of the advantages of being in a conference, which was your same ideology when we talked about some of the larger schools leaving.
Sure.
And it was very, very consistent. And one of the things that you mentioned, which is key for a lot of institutions, is if you add a school, what does it do for your member institutions in terms of fitting that geographic footprint and increased travel for some of their programs to have to go to that institution to play?
Sure. Again, man, you sit down and you look at all the positives and you look at all the negatives. And it's really just my job to go back to the Council of Presidents and Chancellors and provide them with an A option, a B option, and a C option. At that point, it's turned over to the council, and they make the decisions. I think a lot of people think that, well, you're the commissioner, so you tell the presidents and chancellors what to do. That's not the case here. In any conference, the commissioner reports to the Council of Presidents and Chancellors. It's not the other way around. They don't report to me. I think, and I'm not naive when I sit here and I talk to you.
Time will tell.
There are things that are going to happen that sometimes you don't see happen. You want to be open to everything. There's a possibility of anything that can happen, especially with the landscape and with realignment where schools are going, you know what, we're going to be able to get more money from a distribution if we join this league. I'm quite sure there's schools in the SWAC that feel that way, who feel like, hey, if we join a different league, we probably would be able to get more financial benefit from it. The only thing I'm saying is that, when you join a conference, you're tied to those schools. And I think as far as HBCUs and SWAC, I think our bond is a little bit tighter because the money you're talking about, you're not talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. We're not talking about that. That's when you look at those Big Five schools, they're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. In some cases, you're talking billions of dollars. For us, we're not talking that. So if the financial gain is not so, how can I say, not so
significant?
Exactly, not so significant. Why would you leave a school or schools, plural, that you've grown up with, that you have always been a family with? So I think that's how I look at it. But again, at the end of the day, this is a business, and people are going to do exactly what's in their best interest from a business standpoint. So I think that's the reason why you hear the Big Five saying we're going to go start our own division, because you guys down here that can't afford it, you guys are holding us back. We should be able to pay our student athletes $2,000 if we want to. And because you can't afford it, you shouldn't stop us from doing it. And again, at the same time, I think that's where it comes when you're a part of an association. You can't always do what you want to do all the time.
Duer, that is what they're saying, though. That is
yeah,
exactly.
and I mean they have the money to do that.
Right.
They have the money to do that, and I don't have, again, I used to work for Commissioner Delaney at the Big Ten. So I know him and I know his thought patterns and how they think. But at the same time, if they do that, we'll adapt. We've adapted to everything else. So, again, I think moving forward, you look at everything from a business standpoint. And that's how you move. And I think that's exactly what we'll do moving forward.
And the SWAC will continue to educate its student athletes, get them to graduate, and be able to go out and be useful components in today's society.
Exactly. It's all about, putting positive young men and young women in society and going out and having a positive impact on the society. And I don't have any doubt that we'll do that moving forward.
Commissioner Sharp, I appreciate you taking this time. I'm really excited about what you've been able to share, and I think that it will be able to be an exact example of what we're trying to do in Insights and providing insight into what's going on and allow people a real close and personal view of what's going on in Insights, and I appreciate you doing that for us.
No problem, man. I appreciate all the time and the support for HBCUs and the SWAC, definitely, and look forward to chatting with you again.
What's better, saving a bunch or not saving at all?
A bunch.
Okay, what would you buy with all this money you saved?
I buy a changer machine so I could change my brother into a puppy.
Couldn't you just buy an actual puppy?
Yeah, but if my brother's a puppy, I could bring it into show and tell and say, hey, everybody, here's my puppy brother.
Well, when you say it like that, it makes perfect sense.
It's not complicated. Saving is better. Now at AT&T, trade up to iPhone 5. Get it now for $99.99 when you trade in your current smartphone.
To the SWAC, time will tell. Insights is back. Hit us on Facebook if you have any comments or questions, INSiiGHTS, or Twitter, INSiiGHTS. Hashtag David and Goliath. We want to hear from you. Clayton, this is the commissioner of an FCS school. Would you tell the listeners a little bit what is the difference between FCS, FBS, since we don't use Division I, 1AA, and as somebody referred to the alphabet soup, help us out a little bit so we know really what the difference is.
Well, one of the biggest problems we've had is the perception that FCS, meaning Football Championship Subdivision, is not Division I. Both FCS and FBS, Football Bowl Subdivisions, are both in Division I. Even some of the media people get that mixed up from time to time, thinking, referring to people in FCS, which was formerly Division I AA, mixing that up with Division II and Division III or NAIA. So just want to make that plain and simple that everybody knows that FCS and FBS are both in Division I. Now the FCS.
Stop there. Okay, and I love that because you said something there in terms of they're both being Division I. So the only thing that they're different in their classification would be football.
This only applies to football.
So their basketball programs, track programs, softball
baseball programs
are all the same. There's
that
no
is
difference
correct.
in Jackson State and University of Mississippi. They're both Division I.
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, see, the other part of that is that academically, for a student to qualify, the academic requirements are the same. And what happens is that I remember being a coach at Florida A&M University, and people saying, well, we can't, I have a student for you, they can't get into University of Florida, but they can get in at FAM. And I'm like, if they're not eligible at University of Florida, they're not eligible at Florida A&M.
That's correct. That's another misconception.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
We just got to make sure all our people, all our listeners know that both are Division I. They both have the same requirements. Now, FCS and FBS only refer to football. The big boys, as they call them, the people who participate in bowls or are eligible to play in bowls, are FBS, Football Bowl Subdivision. Now, the difference in the two divisions, two subdivisions, is that FBS, the bowl participants, they can have up to 85 scholarships. FCS, which participates in a playoff at the end of the year. Actually, this will be the last year that we can make that distinction in Division I. But FCS, we play in a end of the year tournament. We are allowed 63 scholarships. They could be full, they could be partials. As far as the bowl teams, they can have 85, and any kind of partial scholarship that may be applied, which is very rare on that level, it all applied. It counts as one scholarship. So if you have a guy who has one half scholarship and you have another guy who has, for some reason, has a half a scholarship, those count as two. Those are head count schools, head count division.
And what you mean by head count is basically, regardless of the amount of money an individual gets, they can't exceed the number. So if he gets just books, he counts as a scholarship.
He counts as a scholarship.
And I remember people saying, well, if you just put them on, just give them books. No, because if you give them books, it counts against your scholarship allotment. It's not the amount. It's the fact that that person is getting some aid, and it counts against it. So we have a lot of FCS schools, a lot of FBS schools. Why is everybody jockeying? Why are they leaving from one, trying to get in another one? What's really going on? What's the reason and rationale behind that?
Well, it's just a big money grab. You got the larger schools saying that they don't want the smaller schools, the non-BCS schools, dictating to them how much money they get, when they can get it, and how they can spend it.
Well, I'm not sure I completely understand what the real issue. Now, the one thing I do know, it is about the dollar sign. And a lot of this is driven by television, but the conferences themselves have a lot of control, especially over football games. Mm-hmm. The SEC has their own conference deal, the Big Ten has its own conference deal, the ACC has their own conference deal. I think the ACC even put in something about schools withdrawing from their league within a certain time period have to give some money back. But Notre Dame won't align itself with anybody. So kind of touch a little bit about that and how the NCAA really doesn't make that much money, do they, from the football games?
Well, Mickey, in all honesty, the NCAA does not have anything to do with the revenue that is generated by football games. Okay. The conferences control that.
Wow. Okay. I think that picture is coming a little clearer for me, and probably why institutions like Notre Dame don't join a conference, because they think they're Notre Dame, and that they can kind of cut their own. Dame does that.
Notre Dame had a deal with NBC, the National Broadcasting Company, to broadcast their game. They were the only school that had such a deal for quite a few years. They have now joined. They have now partnered with the ACC, and they will get part of that contract money also. The ACC's contract.
Did they are they playing a football schedule with them, or just? I thought it was a strange kind of relationship that.
Yeah, they're playing a semi. They're playing a semi conference schedule with the ACC. They're contracted to play, I believe, it's 5 games per season.
5 games in football.
In football only. We're only talking about football. 5 games a season. They rotate.
So they're only in the conference in football. They're not in the conference in basketball.
No, they are in the conference in basketball.
Okay, so they play a complete schedule there.
They play a complete schedule in all other sports except for football.
So they gave up their television contract with NBC?
No.
And the ACC wanted them why?
The ACC wanted them, first of all, for their national appeal.
Okay.
Secondly, they can play them on NBC. Some of those games may be on NBC. Along with whatever alliance that the ACC has, for their own television contract.
So the contract actually the Notre Dame actually did was really pretty intuitive on their part in terms of whether it gave them a conference affiliation, a heck of a schedule, and they still basically able to keep a lot of the money for Notre Dame.
They maintain some of their independence.
Wow, that's a heck of a deal. What we're going to do right now, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back to you. Remember, INSiiGHTS, INSiiGHTS, hashtag David and Goliath. We want to hear from you so we can put your comments on, your questions, and clear up any questions or statements that you may have. INSiiGHTS taking a break.
1, 2, talk that talk.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Ronnie, how happy are folks who save hundreds of dollars switching to Geico? I'd say happier than a camel on Wednesday.
Hump day!
Get happy. Yeah. Get Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
INSiiGHTS is back. The mic is open. Hump day! Woo woo! All right, we were talking about Notre Dame and what's going on with them. And Clayton, tell us some more about them and about their television deal.
Well, one interesting thing about Notre Dame's contract with NBC is that all the games that will be on NBC will be at home. That's part of their contract. So they're only televising their home games on NBC.
Okay, now who are they playing in the ACC next year?
Well, next year the only team that they're playing in the ACC will be University of Pittsburgh, which is a rival for them. They've been playing.
Wait a minute, how Pittsburgh and Notre Dame be a rivalry?
They've been playing each other since the 30s.
When's the last time Pittsburgh beat them? When Tony Dorsett was there?
2 years ago.
They beat them 2 years ago?
I think it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay. Okay, now we're talking about all the money that the schools make off of this, but the bigger issue that's evolving is the payment of the players. The bigger schools want to leave and pay these athletes. And I think somewhere, I know we got GT over there. He's a magician, and he's been able to get some sound bites for us. So I'd like for you to listen to Steve Spurrier, who was probably one of the more outspoken individuals about this. So, GT, you could hit Steve Spurrier for us?
This is not pay for play. Us SEC coaches were all in favor 14-0, and also our SEC basketball coaches are in favor 14-0 to give our players some expense money of around $3,500 for the entire year. And this money could be used by their parents, or they could use it themselves also. Basketball, March Madness brought in $1 billion last year. I don't know if you know that. And just to give you a little bit about SEC football, in 1990, my first year in the league, I think the conference split up around $16 million. Last year, $189 million to the conference schools. So the money's grown, but the players are still under the same scholarship. And they're the income-producing sports. Most of the players come from lower-income families, and they could use the money, and their parents can use the money. And it's our thought that we ought to give them just a little bit piece of this big pie.
INSiiGHTS is back. We got some insightful information from Steve Spurrier. Thanks, Big Al. I tried to use your word, but I might not have used it right. But we had Steve Spurrier talk to us a little bit and give us some information. And, I mean, he's one of the few coaches that really just kind of jumped out there and said a few things. And he said we're going to pay them, and if we pay them $300 a piece, and we're going to put $75 on them. I'm just going to shut up right now. Clayton, what's your thought on it?
Well, the thing that struck me about Spurs, first of all, he said they were 14 for 14 as far as the SEC football coaches being in favor of this, and 14 for 14 as far as the SEC basketball coaches being in favor of this. But what he is proposing, like he said, was...
Why did that strike you? That unanimously the coaches...
Well, whether they believe this or not, they're going to stand united.
Oh, okay. Because I would imagine the coaches would agree. If I was at that level, then, I'd probably agree too. But
you're going to have a few that probably didn't necessarily agree, but they're going to go along. They want to go along with this, or may not see that this is in the best interest of, as Commissioner Sharp said, we are part of an association.
Go back. You don't think it's in the best interest that they pay these
Oh, no. I don't doubt
okay.
that. I'm just saying there may be some coaches that may not go along with the entire package.
How are you
going to
going to tell or still chaperone the fact that Gerald Tooks got $300 and Alvin Hollins got $500? I mean, we know all along that things have been going on. And so now if you make it legal to give everybody $300, who's to say that such and such institution still, for some people, $300 might be a cut in pay.
Well, that's true. Have you ever read Connie Hawkins' book?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Do you remember the point that Connie Hawkins made that they gave him a little job when they were able to pay athletes back when he was in school? He went to University of Iowa, and he had a job. And his job was to keep seaweed out the stadium. That was enabling him to get a little bit more money than maybe some of the other guys, or a lot more money than some of the other guys.
Well, that's why the NCAA came in with some of the rules and regulations that they do. Some of them you don't really understand. At one time, if it was a snowstorm and you drove by your student athlete to go to the gym for practice, you couldn't pick that student athlete up and give him a ride to practice because it was an NCAA violation. But in 30 minutes, you had explained to him why you left him in a snowstorm and didn't pick him up. That chance drive-by, they would have student athletes located 50 miles away or 15 miles away in real nice apartments, but they couldn't get to practice or get to class, so they would make the assistant coach drive by and just happen to pick him up. So a lot of times they would put rules in that kind of punish people who were trying to bend them. That's why they put the rules in about people working and could only make X amount of dollars. And I just think this sets up, I don't think it removes the abuse that goes on.
It doesn't.
To do this.
Right.
And
it just pushed it underground.
Yeah, underground, overground, it's going to be an issue because you can't monitor it. And while you're recruiting the kids and saying, if you come out of school, we can give you $300 a game, somebody, but we're going to be able to give you $750. And it's still going to be, it doesn't stop what I don't think it stops the problem.
It's not going to stop the abuse.
Okay.
It's not going to stop the abuse of it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so why do they feel they have to leave to be able to do this? Why do they feel like they have to leave the conference, or we need to start our own conference because we have the ability to do this and you don't?
Well, the other reason I believe is because they feel like they should not be dictated to. I believe it was the former coach at the University of Texas mentioned something to the fact that he didn't want somebody like, I think it was Sam Houston State or somebody dictating how he can do things or how University of Texas can perform. Do things on the field, do things off the field the way they want to do them. So I believe these Big Five conferences want to form their own group, their own association, their own division, however you want to call it, to do their own thing.
No, it's not however you want to call it, because if they do their own conference or own division, they do Division 4 or I don't know what number is higher than Division 1, but they leave the NCAA, which has been rumored, and start their own. Now you're in a whole different league. What's the academic requirements? Because you now create your own. So you don't necessarily have to have a certain test score. You don't have to have a certain grade point average. You don't have to take a certain number of classes.
You may not have to graduate.
Exactly. So where does that put us if they do that? You can't stop people from doing what they want to do. And they are concerned with basketball, because I did hear Steve say that they were going to pay the basketball players too. And I think that's probably the bone of contention with the NCAA is the basketball and the amount of money that they make in basketball.
That's correct. I think that they want to pull some of that basketball away from the NCAA, and I think the NCAA is very afraid of that.
Well, they should be. They get nearly $1 billion in the NCAA tournament. I mean, that is the cash cow that covers and everything. I mean, covers all the other sports. Women's softball, it pays for track, it pays for archery, everything.
Golf, cross country.
From that basketball tournament.
Right.
Almost $1 billion.
But Mickey, out of that $1 billion, the TV and marketing rights that they bring in, the championship revenues and other services, 60% of that goes directly to the schools, 36% goes to programs and services, and about I guess around $30 million goes to the NCAA for administrative.
So that $30 million that they get, they would lose that if the superpower was left and withdrew from the NCAA.
They would lose a great portion of it.
Wow. Yeah, they would. Because I can't see people buying into watching the basketball tournament, and none of these teams are in the tournament. And you take out the ACC, which now with Syracuse and Louisville going in there, man, that's just a heck of a tournament in itself. And I mean, you could argue, but you take those teams out, and the NCAA would be looking to still make that kind. People not going to pay to see that. They're going to go to watch those teams.
Well, that's correct. But you also know that after last season, there was some talk of the big schools trying to cut out the smaller schools and cutting this tournament down to a size where they only had the big schools in, and none of the smaller conferences would even be included. Some of the basketball coaches talking. I know Rick Pitino was one of them who mentioned it. That, hey, they come to see us. I think they were a little bit upset about Butler and some other schools.
They need to go on and have their own and keep their little conference tournaments rolling. Mm-hmm. One of the lures of the basketball tournament is the smaller schools who win every year.
But they don't see that. The bigger schools don't want to see that.
Man, sometimes those bigger schools get so caught up in loving themselves so much that they forget that sometimes their program had to evolve to get to that point. We had the Butlers. We had Norfolk State. We have some of the smaller schools. Butler is now a mainstay.
Exactly.
I mean, they came up. The MAC has done well in football. So I mean, some of these smaller so-called teams and programs have established themselves, and the fans don't want to just see Syracuse and Louisville. They want to see everybody falls in love with a Cinderella. When I was coaching, every tournament I went to, I always told my team that I really didn't want an upset until we played, because I figure every team has a Cinderella. They don't usually have 4 and 5 of them, but they have one. And so we always sold them on the fact that we were that Cinderella team. When we played Duke that year and we went in as the quadruple seed in our own tournament and won 4 games in 5 days, we didn't have a play-in game. We played Duke the first game. We went and played Duke. We got so much attention for the school and everything. And I remember there was a 4-point game until Krzyzewski took a timeout and raised his finger. And once he raised his finger, we didn't get a shot for 10 minutes. But I ain't talking about made a shot. We didn't get a field goal attempt for 10 minutes. And I was like, how does that happen? And when the game was over, we came out. The second game was being played, and we came out of the stands, and the whole gym stood up and gave the team a standing ovation. I mean, we were sitting there during the game because we lost the game, but we were watching our fans. They were doing the wave. They weren't doing the wave around the bowl. They were doing the wave up and then down, up and then down. And we sat on the bench saying, our fans are having the time of their life.
Well, the fans love a Cinderella. You know that. But the administrators hate it.
Yeah, because they always had that chance they lose. And when Norfolk beat Missouri, and you remember years ago when Southern won and Coppin State won the first round one year and really were about to be the first HBC to advance to the Sweet 16.
So they should have beaten Texas.
And they started making some real bad calls on them. And when Southern lost, everybody in the arena was wearing that powder blue. Everybody wore it. So, I mean, I'm just not with that program. I'm just really not. I'm just not, and I don't know what's going to happen with this. They've been discussing it for years. But it seems like this year it's a little bit more, and we're hearing about it, so it just seems like there's a little bit more to it, Clayton.
Yeah, I think it is gaining a little momentum. I don't know if it can be squashed, but it is gaining a little momentum.
Wow. Well, a little momentum is too much. And we talked about the cookie crumbling off the mountain. You don't need to crumble too much. This is Mickey Clayton and Clayton Smith. On Insights, we're going to take a break and come back and do our closing.
1, 2, talk that talk.
One more. One more. Go, one more. Come on. One more. Let's go, son. Come on, one more.
Do one more. Proven hydration to help replace what you sweat out.
One more.
Light, crisp flavors. Gatorade Frost.
It's time for your meeting with the coach in the coach's office.
Insights is back, and we're going to do our closing and wrap up. This has been a long discussed, controversial topic and issue. There's just so many levels of it, so many layers, and money is a central ingredient of it. Who controls it and the distribution thereof. I really don't care how it's disguised. The fight is about money, period. You have to respect the thoughts of our SWAC commissioner, especially when he said, when you're an association, you do what is best for the group. Anyone ever been on a team, in a fraternity, or a sorority? Well, do you leave the group because your opinion is not the popular one? That's what happens when you're a part of a team. And all athletes in athletics are told that from the first time you pick up a ball. Now, the same superpowers who no longer want to play ball with the rest of the less affluent athletic programs will be showing favoritism in-house with their own athletes. They're not going to allow additional monies to their non-football and basketball student athletes that go to their own schools. They're only concerned with football and basketball. Will those sports still be student athletes, or will they just be athletes? As these student athletes in your non-revenue sports graduate, do you think they're going to get back to the programs they graduated from? Or do you think they'll harbor some degree of animosity? I'm just saying now. Students want to get paid. Everyone else is. I'm not sure if I'm completely sold on it, but I do know for a fact there are only a few institutions that can pay their student athletes. Now, if each athlete gets a stipend from a school, who is regulating that certain athletes don't get more than what's allowed? You have to respect what Steve Spurrier is saying, if you agree with it or not, but he's finally saying out loud what others have been whispering about. I worked and coached at a smaller Division I school, and it was always a battle to recruit the student athlete who was gifted athletically. We faced so many uphill challenges just getting in a position to even talk to that student athlete. A lot of times, decisions were made by the coaches who wanted you to work a favor for them to have access to even get your information to the potential student athlete. A lot of times, those same student athletes were graduates who had parents who were graduates from the institution, and they wondered why we didn't try to recruit them, and we have been trying to. All men are created equal. Then again, maybe not, because the superpowers are not treating all men equal. The story of sports is one that is spiritual and emotional. Athletes are special beings. They give so much of themselves, their bodies, families, and social life take a tremendous beating, along with the sacrifices they have to make. This weekend, I watched something on television that was a rarity. No, I'm not talking about Tiger growling and running away from the field, but the Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony. If you've never seen it, you need to watch it. To see a grown man cowboyed up and then lose it emotionally and then do so over an ex-wife that he had an ugly divorce with, that gets my respect. The mic is going to turn off with these closing words from Warren Sapp. Insights, giving you the inside scoop.
And now to my you brother. Michael Irvin in the Money Mike forms the green, and this Orange County boy does the orange, and we form the U in the corner. That's what we do. And there's 5 other University of Miami brethren in this Hall of Fame. I want to say thank you, and I join you, and I love what we have. The bond. It's a Kane thing. You wouldn't understand. I can sit up here all night long, and I won't do that to Chris, because it's time for us to close the show and get a party going, because We here, baby. We here, baby. To my rock, Jamiko Sapp, my ex-wife. Baby, you held me up when nobody else would. I want to thank you. You were my backbone. All the nights you took care of me. I want to say I love you and I thank you. And for everybody else out there that I did forget, I love you. God bless you and good night.